So with what I was saying earlier about Biden saying that we are not there to make nation build, obviously that's a lie. That's not what the U.S. military and the U.S. government said in the first place when they went into Afghanistan. They
But they
did say
weren't though.
they wanted to create a new government, and that is nation building, right? So
Yeah, except they weren't really very like they didn't really take that much interest. They're like
no, no,
any gangster that shows up,
any
it's like,
warlord.
okay, you can be minister of something.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they weren't really involved in the nation building part of it.
Because here's the thing: when again, when we hear from different sources, or we hear, like, I read from different opinions and different news outlets, and well, more like opinion pieces and
Sure.
newspapers arguing against the American withdrawal and how that's going to affect the locals after the Taliban take over. The first thing that comes to my mind, and these are Western media sources, right? So just to be
Sure.
clear, the first thing that comes to my mind is you motherfuckers never cared about the local Afghans to begin with, right?
You never asked them what they
You never
wanted.
cared about the Afghans, never cared about the Iraqis. The only reason why these wars were started was for profit, right? In the case of Iraq, it was also to extract resources. But the idea, as we've just said, is that you have a lot of different interests who are politically connected, who are making a shit ton of money during these wars. And it's not about any political objective. It's not about creating any sort of strategic advantage, or benefiting any allies or anything like that. It is purely for profit. And the sad reality is that a lot of people, a lot of Americans sadly fell for that. And you have a lot of, I mean, I imagine that there are a lot more Americans today who wouldn't fall for that shit, because we're $2 trillion were spent in Afghanistan, and yet we don't have good bridges and roads here in America. The homeless population is exploding. The problems are endless, and yet there are these people who are, again, politically connected, who've become filthy rich out of these wars.
Yeah, and it's the people that are making the decision. So people that are making the decision to go to war that are making money. And that should not be, you know, okay. That should not that is a conflict of interest. If you're a congressperson voting for war, or if you are the defense secretary, or the secretary of state, or the vice president, Dick Cheney, like you should not have vested financial interests in you know in these companies that are going to make money off of it, like Blackwater, like whatever.
Halliburton.
Halliburton, yeah, exactly. Like if you have vested interests in companies that make money off of war, you should you should have to divest from those before you serve as a public as a senator, as a secretary of something, or as a vice president. You should have to give up all of your financial vested interests in these companies. That should be a no fucking brainer, you guys. Like, come on. Like
Yeah,
that.
but I think that Trump showed just how, like, he pushed it to the
How
limit,
far you can go?
how far you can go. But yeah, I think that Cheney, I don't like. I know that he had obviously had vested interest in Halliburton, but he didn't have like an official position until after he
No, he had one before,
well,
and
but
then he
not
stepped
when
down.
he was vice president. I think that that was like pushing it too far, but it didn't make a difference. It's fucking bullshit. He had a massive stake in that company. But the thing is that this just goes to show how corrupt and just how much stink comes out of this system, right? When you know, so we're talking about these companies, but what about the big weapons manufacturers, right?
Oh yeah.
Those guys need a war every few years. Those guys need a new war every 10 years or 15 years. And so the fact that they are the ones, these are one of, so the contractors, government contractors and weapons manufacturers are one of a few industries that are part of like this conglomerate of industries in America that are untouchable and are so
No, and there's
wealthy.
a correlation,
It's a
like
cartel. It's a
it's occurring,
cartel.
yeah.
These
And
guys,
it's
these
the
guys
weapon
go in.
manufacturers.
These guys go in and they pay for the senators and the Congress people for their campaigns. It doesn't matter whether they're a Democrat or
Yeah,
Republican. They don't give a
and
shit.
it's the oil companies, the weapons manufacturers. They
The
all have the same
pharmaceuticals,
interests.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And let me just as a disclaimer here to anyone who's skeptical, this these are not what we're saying right now. These are not weird conspiracy theories that we got off of 4chan or something. This is documented history. Like all of this is actually like public information, and it's very obvious. And we're not just spouting bullshit conspiracy theories. Um, the money trail is very clear.
I mean, and
And
if anyone wants to really go and look back at the history to just know how serious this is, President Eisenhower talked about the military industrial complex and just how threatening that would be to American democracy, right? And so I know there are a lot of people who know this, people have talked about this, but for those who don't, go back, check out Eisenhower and what he said about the.
originally Eisenhower's speech was going to he was going to say the military industrial congressional complex.
Oh, really?
He was going to throw in Congress too, and some advisor or something told him like, yeah, don't throw Congress under the bus. But it was originally going to be the military industrial congressional complex.
Yeah.
Fun
Yeah.
fact.
I mean, uh, this is part of the fabric of the political system in America since lobbying was founded in, was it the 30s, 20s? I think it was the 20s. I could be wrong, 20s or 30s. But the idea is that you have a revolving door of interests, of commercial interests in this country, the big corporations who go through Congress spending tons of money and getting everything that they want, right? And they're the ones pulling the strings.
Yeah,
And,
legislators are bought and sold.
right. And so unless there are politicians who have been talking about this quite a bit, get money out of politics. That's how serious this is. The reason why you will have these endless wars and trillions of dollars spent abroad and so many people
That
profiting
achieve
off of it,
nothing for
that
the
achieve nothing,
American
and then you
people.
have countless people dying or losing limbs and all that, is because of this corruption, right? So
Yeah.
so
And
yeah.
what do the American people get out of it?
Absolutely nothing. Like
They
it's
get to
already forgotten. People are already. I was reading about this today. Afghanistan will be just another thing that people will just avoid talking about in the government, in
and you know
Congress, in
because
the foreign policy establishment. It's like it never happened. It's like it
and
never
it
happened.
lasted 20 years.
Right, but it's
20 years.
they're
But
going to
because
they're
it
going to
didn't affect
pretend.
there are a lot of people that didn't get affected directly by
Right,
it.
but the people in the government are
Hmm.
going to act like it never
Yeah,
happened.
they're just gonna sweep it under the rug and be like, my bad.
Yeah. And
Nope.
that's another, but you see also how the repetition of this, more trillions and more trillions being spent on these endless wars, and America's debt just soaring. Its
And they're
overall debt
no,
is
and
soaring.
people throw a fit.
This is how empires fall.
Yeah.
This is the how
Well,
empires crumble.